Hello and welcome. You are watching World Business Report here on News 9 Live. I'm Krishna Kumar. Our top story on this edition of World Business Report: WeWork's founder Adam Neumann is making moves to repurchase the company after its bankruptcy filing. His brand new venture, Flow Global, seeks to acquire WeWork or its assets and provide financing to keep it operational. Reports indicate the involvement from Third Point hedge fund. But bear in mind, all these discussions are in the preliminary stages. WeWork is at the moment evaluating offers, and it is emphasizing its commitment to financial sustainability. Newman's ambitious growth strategies previously led to WeWork's $47 billion valuation, but then, of course, it all faced criticism and came crashing down. Under Neumann, WeWork grew to be the most valuable startup in the United States of America, worth $47 billion. But his pursuit for growth at the expense of profit and revelations about his eccentric personal behavior led to his ouster eventually and derailed an IPO, or initial public offering, back in the year 2019. The SoftBank-backed company racked up losses on its long-term lease obligations as more and more people began working from home during the pandemic and the demand for office space plunged. Away from WeWork to Hollywood, which now faces a downturn after quote-unquote peak TV. Quarterly results from major studios like Walt Disney and Warner Brothers are expected to reflect this decline, with TV ad revenues dropping by 7%. Streaming services, once seen as the future of entertainment, are struggling with profitability amidst overspending. More details in this Reuters report. Take a look.
Is Hollywood shrinking? After 2 bruising strikes, that's been the question on everyone's minds as stars make their way back to the red carpet. From fewer original series and movies,
I'm gonna find you and take what little you have,
to more scrutiny on production budgets.
I seek outings and adventures.
Entertainment executives, agents, and bankers Reuters spoke to all say the era of peak TV is over.
I want to tell the opposition, cut that throat!
One of them even called it the Great Contraction. So what does that mean for Hollywood? There are signs of the contraction everywhere. It'll be prominent when Walt Disney, Warner Bros. Discovery, and Fox report quarterly results this month. Analysts estimate broadcast and cable TV ads will be down 7% from last year. Next year doesn't look much better, with ad revenue forecasted to fall another 7%. The contraction is also the backdrop for media merger chatter, most recently between Paramount and Skydance Media CEO David Ellison, whose studio produced Top Gun: Maverick. Streaming services were supposed to carry the industry into the future, but are struggling to reach profitability after years of profligate spending. Most streaming services are charging more while delivering less new content. The overall number of scripted series is expected to shrink dramatically from the pinnacle of 633 shows released in 2022.
I don't know what the future holds, so yeah.
Executives say the industry is slowing down. It's taking longer to greenlight shows.
Fate is not decided up there, but down here.
And shows that fail to grab an audience are being canceled quicker, and seasons are featuring fewer episodes. One senior television agent calls it the New World Order. The movie business is having its own existential crisis, as once reliable formats have fallen flat at the box office. Big-budget superhero movies have been falling short of expectations. So insiders say studios are shifting gears, and focusing instead on fewer but more ambitious endeavors, hoping to deliver Oppenheimer and Barbie-sized cultural and box office impact.
I find the world a bitter and complicated place.
According to analyst T.D. Cohen, people are streaming everything except the biggest, loudest films, so the outlook for a sustained recovery is questionable. That will further constrain cinemas, as insiders warn there may be too few films released to justify the 39,000 screens in the U.S. U.S. box office sales are expected to be $8 billion in 2024, down a third from 2019.
Away from Hollywood, in a tight 214 or 214 and 216 or 216 vote, 214 to 216 vote, the U.S. House of Representatives dealt a blow to Republican Speaker Mike Johnson by rejecting impeachment charges against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas.
The clerk will report the motion.
Mr. Moore of Utah moves to reconsider the vote on adoption of House Resolution 863.
Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the vote on the motion to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 7217, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. On this vote, the yeas are 214 and the nays are 216. The resolution is not adopted. For what purpose does the gentleman from Utah seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I have a motion at the desk.
The clerk will report the motion.
Mr. Moore of Utah moves to reconsider the vote on adoption of House Resolution 863.
The question is on the motion to reconsider. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it.
The ayes have it. Away from the U.S. House of Representatives to McDonald's, the global fast food giant, which experienced its first quarterly sales miss in nearly 4 years, and attributing it to weak sales growth in its international division, partly due to the conflict in West Asia. The company is among several Western brands facing protests and boycotts over perceived pro-Israeli stances as the Gaza war continues to rage on.
The war in the Middle East is impacting one of the world's most well-known brands, McDonald's. The fast food chain on Monday reported its first quarterly sales miss in nearly 4 years due to weak sales growth at its international business division. The burger giant is among several Western brands that have seen protests and boycott campaigns over their perceived pro-Israeli stance on the war in Gaza. McDonald's said recently that the conflict, as well as, quote, associated misinformation about the brand, had meaningfully impacted performance in some overseas markets in the fourth quarter. On its post-earnings call, the company's CEO said that while the most pronounced sales setback was in the Middle East, McDonald's also saw business slow in countries such as Malaysia and Indonesia, as well as in France. And it's not the only American brand whose business has been affected by the Middle East conflict. Starbucks last week cut its annual sales forecast, partly due to slowing sales in the region. McDonald's U.S. business is also starting to show signs of weakness. Traffic at U.S. stores slumped 13% in October, according to Placer.ai data cited by Wells Fargo, and declined roughly 4.5% and 5% in November and December, respectively. Shares of McDonald's were down 4% in Monday morning trading.
Away from McDonald's to Samsung, where in a major relief for the electronics major, Chairman Jay Lee was declared not guilty of accounting fraud and stock manipulation by a court in Seoul. The legal proceedings centered on a merger in the year 2015 strategically designed to strengthen Lee's influence over the tech giant. More details in this report.
Samsung Electronics chairman J.Y. Lee was found not guilty of accounting fraud and stock manipulation on Monday. The case covered a 2015 merger that prosecutors said was really designed to solidify his control of the tech giant. 55-year-old Lee and other former executives were accused of engineering a merger between two Samsung affiliates, Samsung C&T and Chael Industries. Prosecutors argued it ignored the interests of minority shareholders and sought a 5-year jail term. Lee denied wrongdoing and argued he acted on belief the merger would be good for shareholders. A panel of 3 judges in Seoul said the merger decision was reached by the boards of the two companies after their consideration and review. A judge said it could not confirm the sole purpose was to strengthen the management rights or ease Lee's succession within Samsung. All 14 defendants were acquitted. The sentence means Lee doesn't have to return to jail and could be given a freer hand in steering the country's biggest conglomerate. He was convicted in 2017 of bribing a friend of former President Park Geun-hye. He served 18 months of a 30-month sentence and was then pardoned 2 years ago. At the time, the government said they needed his help with a national economic crisis. Shares in Samsung rose 5% after Monday's ruling, but fell back to largely flat later.
Away from Samsung to UBS, which unveiled plans to ramp up cost savings and resume share buybacks as it progresses with integrating Credit Suisse following a lukewarm fourth quarter results report card. The Swiss bank aims to achieve $13 billion in savings by 2026, with half of that expected from workforce reductions, up from its initial target of over $10 billion. Now, UBS's takeover of Credit Suisse last March was the first ever merger of two global, systemically important banks. Take a look at this report.
UBS wants to deepen cost savings as it integrates Credit Suisse. The Swiss bank now expects $13 billion in savings by the end of 2026, and half of it will come through job cuts. The lender had previously set a goal of more than $10 billion. UBS's takeover of Credit Suisse last March was the first ever merger of two global systemically important banks. It has since managed to avoid any major problems, and its share price has gone up some 50%. The bank declared the first phase of the integration complete on Tuesday, but there's still a long way to go, with difficult stages ahead. Analysts gave its fourth quarter results a middling response. The cost of absorbing Credit Suisse led the world's biggest wealth manager to post a net loss of $279 million in the fourth quarter, slightly better than expected. Analysts did welcome a proposed 27% increase in its 2023 dividend. UBS also announced Tuesday it would restart share buybacks. The lender's stock price was down 3% by mid-afternoon.
Oil and natural gas giant BP, British Petroleum, has beaten expectations with earnings of over $3 billion in the last months of the year 2023, exceeding projections of around $2.77 billion. Strong gas trading and higher oil prices offset challenges like lower refining margins. The company also pledged increased share repurchases and prudent investments, aiming to address investor concerns about its energy transition strategy.
BP beat forecasts in the fourth quarter. The British energy giant posted earnings of $3 billion on Tuesday, beyond projections of $2.77 billion. BP said the results reflected strong gas trading and higher oil and gas prices. That offset negatives including lower refining margins and weak oil trading. BP also boosted share repurchases and vowed to make pragmatic investments in moves to soothe investor concern over its energy transition plans. Traders liked the update, sending shares more than 5% up in early trades. Now the earnings are a relief for recently appointed CEO Murray Auchincloss. The company had missed forecasts by a wide margin over the previous 2 quarters. Auchincloss replaced former boss Bernard Looney, who suddenly stepped down last year over a scandal. The new CEO told Reuters BP was still committed to reducing oil and gas output. It also wants to grow renewables and low-carbon businesses by the end of the decade. But he said BP would pragmatically adapt to what's happening along with demand in society.
Time now to put the focus on Toyota. Toyota has raised its full-year operating profit forecast by nearly 9%, citing increased sales volumes and a weaker yen that contributed to improved third-quarter results. More details in this Reuters report. Take a look.
Toyota hiked its outlook for the year by nearly 9% on Tuesday. The firm now expects a full-year profit of around $33 billion. That after its third-quarter earnings raced past analyst estimates. The Japanese giant saw operating profit soar more than 75% on the previous year, hitting over $11 billion. That outshone many rivals, which have warned of tepid sales and slowing growth in demand for electric vehicles. Some analysts say that makes Toyota's relative weakness in EVs start to look like a strength. Instead, it's a leader in hybrids, for which demand rocketed. Its sales of such vehicles jumped by almost a half over the quarter. North America was the best region for the firm, with sales there rising by 28%. A weaker yen, down around 10% against the dollar since 2022, also boosted the value of overseas earnings. Toyota retained its crown as the world's top car maker for a fourth year, but a series of scandals at group companies has threatened to tarnish its reputation for quality. Last week, the company's chairman had to apologize for the concern caused by misconduct at 2 subsidiaries and an affiliate. Nonetheless, Toyota shares surged close to 5% following Tuesday's bullish outlook.
And keeping it with global auto majors, Honda Motor Company announced a recall of 750,000 cars in the US, including specific models like a Honda Pilot, Honda Accord, and Honda Civic from the years of 2020 to 2022. Now, the recall addresses a critical airbag defect that poses a risk of unintentional deployment during crashes. More in this report. Time to put the focus on Wall Street, which closed slightly higher as investors weighed mixed earnings and the U.S. Federal Reserve's comments. The Dow, S&P, and the Nasdaq all saw modest gains. Meanwhile, Snap, the parent company of Snapchat, saw its shares surging before plunging 30% post-closing after missing revenue targets for the second consecutive quarter. GE Healthcare Technologies rose by nearly 12% on better than expected earnings, driving the healthcare sector space in the US to a record high. Here is a detailed report from Reuters.
Wall Street's main indexes closed slightly higher on Tuesday as investors digested a mixed bag of earnings and remarks from Federal Reserve policymakers. The Dow added nearly 0.4%, the S&P 500 gained 0.2%, and the Nasdaq ticked up marginally. In public comments Tuesday, Minneapolis Fed President Neil Kashkari said the central bank is, quote, not done yet with inflation, and Cleveland Fed President Loretta Mester said she was not ready to suggest the timing of rate cuts.
It's deja vu all over again.
The famous Yogi Berra quote is the way Sean O'Hara, president of Pacer ETF's distributors, described how the Fed continues to drive the market.
We're still watching inflation. We're still watching what the Fed is going to do. Are they going to pivot? Are they going to cut? Are they going to cut 6 times, 4 times, 2 times? When? Are earnings going to continue to remain strong? So I think we're sort of stuck in this same loop, if you will, of information that we don't have enough solid answers for to be able to figure out direction going forward.
In earnings news, shares of Snap, which closed up 4%, plunged 30% after the bell, after the Snapchat owner missed quarterly revenue targets as it struggles for ad dollars. Shares of GE Healthcare Technologies gained more than 11.5% after the medical tech firm posted better than expected fourth quarter earnings, driving the S&P 500 healthcare sector to an all-time high. But the materials sector was the biggest gainer, thanks to DuPont, whose shares gained nearly 7.5% after the chemicals firm beat fourth quarter profit estimates, announced a $1 billion share repurchase program, and hiked its dividend.
Now, Japanese multinational video gaming giant Nintendo upped its annual sales projections for the Switch console to 15.5 million units, up from the previous estimate of 15 million units. Now, the adjustment reflects the company's successful sales efforts during the year-end shopping season of 2023 and also maximizing performance from the aging console. More in this report.
Nintendo raised its forecast for sales of its Switch console on Tuesday. It had previously seen full-year sales of 15 million, but has now put that up to 15.5 million units. That surprised some analysts, with the hybrid home portable Switch nearing its 8th year on the market. Expectations are rising that Nintendo will release new hardware this year to replace the aging console. The gaming company sold just over 13.7 million Switch units in the first 9 months of the financial year. That was down 8% on the same period a year earlier. But the life cycle of the Switch has been extended by a string of hits, like The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which launched last May. Super Mario Bros. Wonder also went on sale in October and has sold more than 10 million units. Nintendo reported a record net profit of about $2.75 billion for the April-December period. Company shares closed down 0.5% ahead of earnings, but have gained 14% year to date.
Now, time to put the spotlight on a groundbreaking moment as far as the world of telecommunications is concerned. Norway's leading telecom operator, Telenor, has now opened the world's southernmost mobile phone base station in Antarctica, providing regular cell phone services to a previously untouched corner of the frozen continent. The 4G network is set to boost security and help with the collection of real-time data at the Troll Research Station. The technology will be the same as elsewhere, but special provisions have been made to protect all the telecommunication equipment from the extremely harsher than harsh climate in Antarctica. Away from Antarctica to New York, where the New York Fashion Week set to kick off on the 9th of February with some innovative metallics and fresh florals expected on the catwalk. Actor Meryl Streep, a frequent Lanvin wearer, will be in attendance along with a host of other Oscar winners and nominees. Take a look at this.
We're using New York City as our footprint, and we will have 3 venues. So our first is our designer runway venue at Starrett Lehigh, RXR Starrett Lehigh's space in West Chelsea. The second is Highline 9, also in another area of West Chelsea, where we will be featuring our showrooms and our presentations. And then here, in this location at 21 Green, is New York Fashion Week Backstage, which is our consumer experience.
This looks good. I have to return this. They need to pick this up. They need to pick this up. What may be surprising to many is that this industry really is lacking female-led brands, and what is so fabulous about New York is that there are so many fabulous female designers. You know, designers in New York Fashion Week really take a lot of innovative craft techniques and bring them to new levels, like this design from Carolyn Zimbalist. She's taking biochemistry to new levels and making it wearable art. These are chemical-made appliques, which we love and are so cool. Florals for spring, kind of expected, but florals for fall.
And that's all we have time for on this edition of World Business Report. Thank you so much for watching. This is Krishna Kumar signing off.